was the only junior to be named to the All-Patriot League first team.
He can really make this team go a dynamic guard and an all-league player.
Are you kidding me, Jordan Burns?
And how about the pass by Jordan Burns?
Burns having the ball out, and it's open. Late night deposit.
What's up?
Yeah, I got rid of it.
What's up, Coach?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
You got the Burns household there? Got the Saint symbol going in the background?
Yeah. Same symbol everywhere. It's terrible.
I saw a picture of your dad. Was your dad a part of a big Colgate, like a chat room?
Yeah, the men's basketball thing. They had like a whole Zoom meeting. Yeah.
And I saw I knew it was him. The picture was kind of small and blurry, but I saw the Saints thing in the back.
Yeah.
Leroy. Well,
The last video I saw of your dad, he was on like a fraternity thing, dressed up and spinning a cane.
Oh yeah.
That was a while ago, but
Yeah. He still does it. So
yeah.
I think that one had to be a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
He's not moving like that anymore.
well, anyway, I thought this would be good for young athletes and coaches alike to kind of listen to y'all's story, y'all's relationship. Some positives and some negatives, the ups and the downs. It was a journey, but at the end of the day, it was a beautiful thing to watch. And so I think it'd be good to sit and talk and get to know you guys a little bit. I mean, I know you guys, but not everybody knows you guys.
Yeah.
So first, Reggie, I know you're retired now, but you had a heck of a career, huh? I mean, former city coach of the year and state coach of the year for TABC. I mean, that's some big time stuff.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that when you do well, it's because the kids you're coaching, not because of the X's and O's. So I finished well. But we went through some tough years too, and then we had some really good years. But that's what I figured out in the coaching world is you can do a lot of great things X and O's wise, but you better have some kids that can play for you too. So all those awards I got, those were at the end. Those were directly from the kids that we coached. We had great kids. I mean, we did at Marshall those few years. So I guess I got to thank those guys for that because that's why I got them. If they wouldn't have done what they did, I would have never got those awards. So absolutely.
And Jordan, you had a strong career at Marshall, to finish off, and obviously the great things you did at Colgate. So congrats on your end as well. But tell me a little bit about growing up as a young kid. Developing a love for the game. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I was a football player. My dad, loved football. And that was something that I loved growing up. When I got to about the 7th grade, I realized I wanted to kind of play both. I realized, I wanted to be kind of like a dual sport athlete. And then in middle school, obviously, everybody plays kind of football, basketball, track. And I think around that time when I was transitioning to high school, I used to come up to Marshall for open gyms and stuff. And I think I just got a real love for the game of basketball more than anything. And I think as football went on, obviously at Marshall, we had a different coach, the coaching switch and everything like that. And I think during that time was when I started to figure out, all right, I kind of want to just lean towards basketball. And that's kind of where the love came was, I think, having a good coach, obviously having you guys there to be able to push me and, being able to bring guys up to the gym to come play with us. Obviously, that built confidence in me to be able to play at the level that I was able to play at throughout high school. So, yeah, I think that's just a testament to you guys, bringing those guys in, and, bringing the confidence to me and making me feel like I could really, take basketball a long way. And I think that's why, I decided to continue to play basketball and continue to work as hard as I could.
Nice. And what about you, Coach Ollendieck? Just growing up, was coaching a part of your background as far as your family goes, or what got you into the business?
No, I guess probably my dad. My dad, they owned a restaurant. My parents did. I grew up in a small town in Iowa. They they owned a restaurant there, and they worked a lot of hours. But the one thing my dad always did is he played in men's leagues. He played in softball leagues, basketball leagues, flag football leagues, like everything till he's in his mid-40s. And that's when I kind of fell in love with sports. So I would go to all the different stuff, and then you kind of grew up, and I was just around it. So I remember I was about 6, 7 years old. I always said I was going to take over the restaurant from my dad. And then when I hit about 8, 9 years old, I got so much into sports that I never really had another direction. It was either I was going to play sports, and then I was going to coach and teach, and that was all I ever wanted to do. So I've been pretty lucky, with the path that I took, and I got put in with the right people and just kept kind of going. But my dad started the basis of it, I think, for the passion I had for sports. And people think I was intense, but I don't hold a candle to how intense my dad was. So that's probably what got it started. And then my mom always supported me through the whole process, and they made sure that whatever they could do to help me, they did it. And that's kind of where my base came from.
Nice. And so just to be clear for everybody, you're not from Texas.
I'm not from Texas. I'm from a town of about 4,500 people in the northeast corner of Iowa, about 20 hours away. Yep, Cresco, Iowa.
Cresco, Iowa.
Iowa.
And talk to us a little bit about the style of basketball played up there.
Well, it's different. Everything up there is a lot more skill-based, and it's a lot more a little more along the lines of what you see on the movie Hoosiers or something. Everything's, pass the ball, move the ball movement, good shots, team defense kind of stuff. And it's more skill-centered, I would say. You have kids play everything because the seasons don't overlap. In Texas, the seasons overlap. You play football, state championship for footballs, Thanksgiving week, and a week start basketball. So everybody plays everything. And so it's just a lot more. When you grow up with those guys your whole life, that's who you play with. I'd say Texas is a little bit more they got a lot more athletes, and they tend to want to get up and down the floor a lot faster pace and use athleticism and pressure and speed the game up a lot more. So it's just a different styles. We kind of played a little bit of both at Marshall, and it helped us because we weren't as always. We honestly, if you looked at us, and Jordan probably can agree with me, top to bottom, our team, we weren't near as athletic as a lot of the teams that we were able to beat. But we were able to beat those teams by the end because we always played together. And so and had a lot of ball movement, similar to, I guess, a little bit like the Spurs style, because the Spurs don't really play typical NBA style either. They kind of mix some things up too. So I would say a little bit more like that, but very different background. Kids they play all sports. It's, completely different upbringing than here, but our schools aren't so big. I graduated with 180 kids, not 700 or 800, so you kind of have what you have at the school, and that's what you work with.
Gotcha. Well, that's an interesting background. And to be honest, as a coach, I benefited from your background. I was fortunate enough to work with you and to learn a lot as a young coach. And as far as the fundamentals of teaching the game at that level and skill-based type stuff. And so I'm appreciative of it. And I was also fortunate enough to be able to coach a young Jordan Burns during that process. One thing I always appreciated was you two guys' relationship and the passion that both of you had. And so I was fortunate enough to be a part of that for a couple of years. So let's talk a little bit about that relationship, especially early on. First off, Jordan, what was your first impression of Coach Ollendieck when you first met him?
Man, I honestly didn't know. I mean, I kind of figured Coach O was like a strict, kind of like mean guy, you know what I'm saying, just by how he was. I feel like I didn't really know what to expect too much, obviously because he was the new coach coming in. So I really didn't know what to expect. I was kind of glad that, I think it's Coach Morris, right, that was there. I was kind of glad that he was moving out as I was coming in because obviously, you know what I'm saying, he played an older style of basketball and they didn't really have any plays or anything like that. So I didn't really know what to think. I was kind of optimistic about it, but I was like, man, he's probably going to be, a tough coach. He's probably going to be tough on everybody. So that's kind of what I figured coming into it, but I didn't really know to what extent it was going to be. So.
And Coach, what were your first impressions as a coach of a young Jordan Burns?
Well, when I was coming in, he was going to be an incoming freshman. And I think you remember I one of the first things we did is we got into middle school. So I knew who Jordan was through Coach Leslie and Coach Nanias, his middle school coaches that I had coached against a long time ago prior to that. So they had already told me about him, and I also knew he's a dual sport athlete. So I just knew that he loved a lot of sports, and he was going to be a guy that more likely was going to come in and play both. And they just always said he has a lot of potential is what they always said about him. And first couple times I saw him in the gym, I mean, quick first step. They joke about it, but he was a skinny string bean, and he had his ears, and he was just a string. I mean, you remember him. He was all, thin, but he had long arms, and he had a quick first step. I just remember thinking we got to develop a skill set. If he develops a skill set, this kid could be pretty good because he's athletic enough to be a good player. And I remember when he first came in, we even had the football talk because that summer we discussed whether he was going to play football or basketball, and he was there with Coach Kaiser at the time. And Coach Kaiser was great with it. And I remember Jordan actually at one point said he wasn't going to play football. And then he went, I think, what was it, Jordan, about 2 days, and I think you missed it, right?
Yeah.
And we went out, talked to Coach Kaiser, and Coach Kaiser was awesome with him and told him, your heart's in it. We want you here, but we want what's best for you. And I thought that was the right way to play it with Jordan.
Absolutely.
Jordan went and played. He actually played football his freshman year. And if you remember, he came in after football, and he was, if not the best, one of the best football players they had on the freshman team that year. And he had a future there too. But luckily for us, it worked out. He ended up coming back with us full time. But that's what I knew about him, and he was always joking, always laughing. And if you remember Coach Alvarado, a lot of times if you watched him from a distance, he was always dancing around, like kind of, he's always dancing, doing something, and stuff. And I remember that about him. He had that type of personality, from a distance. So, I never know with kids when they come in what they're going to develop to, and thankfully for us, he developed into a really great player.
And he developed the left hand, right?
Well, that's one of the things, that I think separated him, though, is if you remember, we always did the end of the year evaluations. And I think that's when I started realizing with him how good he probably could be, because at the end of his freshman year, we sat down like we always did. We always gave kids 2 goals, and we said, hey, I think for you, Jordan, it was to be able to dribble with your left hand coming into the next year and to get stronger. And I remember that summer, that's what he worked on. And he came back as a sophomore, and he handled the ball. Because remember, we were worried he was going to be the point guard that next year as a sophomore. And we're like, what are we going to do if he can't handle the ball with his left hand, kind of thing. And he came back and handled the ball with his left hand, still didn't attack the basket, but could handle it and take care of the ball, and came back a lot stronger. And that's when I realized that every year you gave him 2 things, and he came back and he worked on it the whole time, and he came back and could do it. And a kid that you don't find a lot of kids like that. So I think that's kind of what separated him.
I think your level and my level, Coach, as far as our connection, you totally took my next question out of my mouth and my brain. I was going to ask you, at what point, he was a very driven kid, but at what point did you find out he had the potential to be something special? And you kind of just answered it without even me asking. That's kind of scary.
Well, I can go back on something else, though, and you and I had the same conversation the first time, because you did a great job as an assistant when I said, hey, we need to get these guys playing against good players all the time. Because remember, the open gym deal was an issue. When we got there, like, kids just didn't play hard, and a lot of them didn't come. And if you remember, we got all those college guys, guys that played with me. Travis Leach was there, and you had Antonio Daniels there, and Kia, and all these different guys that you knew that you brought in, Eric Villarreal, all these guys to play against these kids. And if you remember, you and I sat there that first time they played, and we said, he's got a different mentality, because our older kids, they're great kids, but they would kind of just play. They didn't compete with those guys. It was almost like an intimidation thing, like, oh, these guys are better than us, so we're going to stop. Jordan wasn't that way. You remember, he took the ball, went right down the middle, and went right at people. Yeah. And we had that conversation that day, and he's got a different mentality. He's not scared. He's going to go after people. He's not intimidated by it. And that's a hard thing to find, because a lot of kids, they can say that they're not intimidated, but when they get against great competition or guys that are better than them, a lot of them, sit down and they get laid back, and they won't play hard. And he always did that. And that was the very first time we saw him in an open gym at Marshall, if you remember that day, because we had that conversation.
I do. It's hard. You're right. It's hard to find that in young players. A lot of people say that they're not scared, but when the balls roll onto the floor, the guys that aren't show it, and the guys that are, they show that also. And he was a guy that was relentless and fearless, and still had a lot to work on. But it's hard to teach that mentality. I don't know. Is that something that can be taught? Do you guys think?
I think it's a hard thing to teach. I think some kids just kind of have it in them. I think the way they're raised and the way they are, I think a lot of them just have it in them. I'm not saying kids can't develop it, but you can support it. But at the end of the day, that's a personality thing that I think some kids, for whatever reason, have the innate ability to bring that out, and some just struggle with it forever. So I don't know. I can't say you can't develop it, but it's not an easy thing to develop. It's a whole lot easier when the kid comes in with that, and you have to you can work on skill sets and skill levels and understanding the game. Because if you got to teach them passion, and you got to teach them, to go out there to compete all the time, and you got to do that every day, that becomes a thing that makes it hard and too, and they got to want to be the best. And I think, with Jordan, after knowing his family, I think a lot of it is how he was brought up and raised. His parents raised him that way. And so I think he didn't know any different. That's just what he did. And you see it still to this day. If he wants something, he's going to go get it. And he's not intimidated by it, and you could see that at a young age with him.
Jordan, even though at the time in high school, maybe you didn't always see it at the time, or, coach was holding you to a certain standard and he'd get on you, and we maybe didn't agree with everything he was saying at the moment. At what point did you realize, okay, Coach Ollendieck is a guy that I can trust to have my best interest at heart, even though he's hard on me and holding me to these expectations, and I don't always agree with it, per se. I can trust this guy who's got my best interest at heart.
Yeah. Honestly, I think y'all did a good job of doing, the good cop, bad cop type thing. We had Coach O yelling at me, you know what I'm saying, and trying to make sure that, things were always right. And then, you always turned it on a different side, and always would explain it to me in a different way and say, don't always listen to how he's saying it, but listen to what he's saying, and make sure that that Coach O wants the best for you. Obviously, he wants the best for the team and everything. And I think just that dual, that combo that we had with you guys as being our coaches just created a sense of camaraderie within our whole team. I think we started to believe that we were way better than we were, kind of. And I think that led to, when you look at it, I think you look at the statistics and you look at all the measurements and everything, like our team wasn't supposed to be like one of the best teams in the city. If you look at it that way, you look at our size, you look at our height, but you guys really made us believe, I think, early on, even when we took the losses and we had the 5-23 season, and my freshman year, we weren't that good. I think those were just building blocks to create, for me, Dorian, Roy, the guys like that, to create a certain energy in the locker room, I think. And it started with you guys having that good cop, bad cop thing. And I think that's kind of what allowed us to succeed. I think all of us.
And Coach was really good about, when I first came on with Coach Ollendieck, he'd say, look, if I'm getting intense and kind of heated, I'm going to need you to be the calming voice and calming factor. And I've been able to also do the same thing at my place. If I'm getting a little heated, and I've told my guys, hey, I need you to be the calming voice, or vice versa, playing off each other, and finding that balance. Coach, talk to me a little bit about some of those rough patches early on. What are some of the things that you think maybe Jordan had to improve on as a young student athlete?
It was always great. We never had a problem. Never. No, honestly, when I look back on it now, we were caught in the middle of it. I was lucky I had some good mentors, because here's what I had never had in the coaching realm. I had some good players, but he was the best player I had probably coached, mainly because of his work ethic. But also, when you get kids that are like that have that type of work ethic, that want to compete, they can be extremely stubborn and hard and very hard-headed. And I'm the same way. And so I felt like at times, because of the way that I carried myself, the way he was, sometimes we just fought battles just to fight battles. And And so I was lucky. I had, and you know, Coach Bertel that I had worked for prior that actually hired me, and he was the head coach and I was his assistant. And he was a master of being able to build relationships with kids and be able to take a step back, look at situations and say, okay, we need this. And I tell you what, if they would have charged me money for how many times I called him, I would have been broke and he'd have been a rich man because it was a learning experience for me too. I had to learn a lot more patience. I had to learn how to explain things better, because the one thing with Jordan is you better be able to explain it to him. He wasn't a kid that you could just say, hey, go do this, and he just went and did it. Because if in his mind he knew how to do it better, if you didn't explain to him why your method was better, he wasn't going to do it. And so we would hit heads, and so I can remember some moments. And the one thing with him, a lot of it was just maturity, I think, with a lot of kids. But there were times I think he, and I don't know, Jordan, you could tell me I'm wrong, but there was times I think he almost, in a sense, picked a fight. Sometimes to pick a fight. I mean, there were some times when there were some drills maybe didn't go the way he wanted, and he didn't like how we had to go run. I can remember some times where he just basically refused to run. Remember a practice where he was kind of trotting, and it got so bad that I kept making everybody run that the guys went and stood next to him and were like, come on, and trying to run with him to get him just to run. And it was like, at that time, it was just a battle. It was like, hey, I'm gonna show you that I've got I'm here, and I was the same way. I'm going to show you that, you're a player and I'm the coach. And so we kind of went round and round, and it was a maturity thing. But for him, to figure out how to communicate more effectively, to, be patient, to be able to explain things, to see a kid's perspective. Because when I realized it, when I look back, is he just was built a lot like me. I can tell you right now, I was blessed with some great coaches that were patient with me, because I did the same stuff, probably worse than he did with coaches, coming up. And so I realized that I took a step back, and my parents used to tell me the same thing. I'd call and say, hey, this happened today. And my mom kind of laughed, and they'd be like, well, you used to do the same thing, and so it was a learning experience. But we were able to develop it to a point where I think a lot of it was also the trust thing. I learned to be able to trust him that he was going to do what I needed him to do. And I think he learned to trust me that, hey, what he's telling me it may not seem right to me, but it's what's best for our team. And I think that was the biggest struggle early on when he was young. People probably remember he led the district in scoring as a sophomore. Your last year there, he was the leading scorer in the district. But for us to be really good, he needed to be able to learn how to trust the guys around him, because we were only going to be as good as those guys around him could support him to be. And he had some good support guys. I mean, Dorian Lopez was a tremendous player. Roy Womack, did a lot of great things. He wasn't going to score, but he did pieces. We had all these guys, Jared Costanzo, Kelvin. We even had bench guys. You get into like a guy like Dallas Benitez or a guy like, Ray Rios. So these guys, they practiced hard. And Ryan Hernandez, he used to match up with Jordan a lot. Those guys could push him in practice. And so we kind of got to that mentality where I think he started realizing, hey, these guys are important, because if I go hard, I can get them better. And if they're better, they're going to support me in a game and we can become better. But it was a major process, man. We had our battles. And I want to say we probably battled all the way through even his junior year. Because his junior year, I think, Jordan, I don't know if you could attest this, I think he struggled a little bit junior year transitioning from scoring as much as he scored to being able to figure out how to play with guys and rely on other guys to support him. I remember we had some transitional moments with it where we had to kind of sit down and talk like, look, I know you're not getting as many shots. I know you're not scoring, but this is actually what's best for the team. And once he developed past that maturity point, by the time he's a senior, I think he kind of figured it out, and we got to the point we didn't have to fight so much. It was more like, and honestly, Jordan plays with a lot of emotion. That's one of the things I'm so proud about with him in college. They talk about all the time about, oh man, he's so, he can get a little fired up, but he stays pretty even keel all the time when I watch him. And he wasn't always like that when he was younger. He could get in emotional, and then that's when he would do things or make mistakes and things like that. By the time he was a senior, you could kind of see it coming. And I didn't have to yell at him anymore. I just call him over and say, hey, you're starting to kind of go here. And he'd trust you and accept it and calm down and then go play. And so it was a big process. But I mean, honestly, that's an assistance thing too, because you and Alvarez earned your money. on the bench because if you remember, there's times in games I just tell you, hey, get him out and talk to him because him and I were going to go at it. You know, and Jordan, I don't know if you remember, we went at it that time. It was your sophomore year, I think. That's to me the biggest blow up was during a game. We were playing a high school that you knew a lot of the kids at because you'd gone to middle school with them, and it was the second game in the district season. We had a lead. We kind of blew the lead. They started kind of extending it. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember you and I traded some words, and then we went to the bench, and you were going to get the last word, and I was going to get the last word. It went on, and I don't know if you remember Coach Alvarado. We went into that locker room. I can count a handful of times in my coaching career that I've gone to this place traded and fired up, and that was one of them. I walked out of the locker room, man, I was fired up. And I remember Jordan said, I'm going to transfer. And then I was like, you do what you need to do. And we got into it. We hit heads. And that to me was a big turning point too. That night, I think that actually had to happen. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, here we are. We're going to work together. We're going to get through it, kind of thing. So I don't know. It was a process, but it is with all kids, and all kids are different.
Jordan, what is your recollection?
I remember. I don't remember like what team we were playing like that, but I definitely remember that moment and just being. I'm saying I'm gonna leave. Like, man, I don't need this and all those things. But I mean, obviously, it was a maturity factor. I think obviously, like Coach said, I needed to grow up, and become, sort of like a man. Obviously, if you want to play at the next level, you have to be able to take coaching. You have to be able to understand that the people around you on your team want the best for you because that's ultimately what's going to be best for the team. So I think just understanding that aspect of the game was what has helped me propel forward, because if I didn't have Coach O to, battle with and things like that, then when I got to Colgate with Coach Lango and things happened with me and Coach Lango, but nothing has come close to, what me and Coach O probably have, have gotten into with. And that's really just a testament to the maturity that Coach O, helped me build. And, along with you and Coach Alvarez and you guys just continuing to teach me that basketball is a team sport, literally, in every way. The team matters so much. And that one player, regardless of, their averages on the floor or what they do, that everybody on the team matters, like we were talking about Ryan Hernandez. He came in every day and, he tried to put me through hell. He's fouling every day. And Coach O allowed it to, to make me a better player, and guys like Dallas, guys like Roy, guys like Doran, guys that we needed just to all come together and just continuously work hard every single day in order for us to win. Because if we didn't work harder than teams, we weren't more skilled, we weren't more athletic. So it really came down to just working super hard. And I think Coach instilled that in us. And that's why, I was able to mature, because I was pushed to mature. I had to do it in order to win, in order to find a spot to play at on the next level. I had to develop some type of trust in, Coach. And I think that eventually that trust led to a good friendship, and it led to, just real love on the court. And we had a real love in the locker room, and it helped us, win games. We were able to beat the number 1 and number 2 teams in the city in the same tournament, So, I mean, we were able to do things like that nobody would ever think, Marshall basketball would probably ever be able to do. So, I think it was just the whole pushing us to our limit and making sure that we were going to work hard at every turn, every moment, just to propel ourselves forward. And I think that's why everybody on the team, regardless if they're playing basketball or not, they're still good men in society. There's still, a path that's, a lot of kids at Marshall, some turn to. So I think that's a testament to you guys. You guys didn't let that happen. And, we definitely appreciate you guys for that.
Hey, Jordan, I'm going to let you tell the story because you tell it better. Tell the flat ball story.
Yeah, so this had to be, sophomore year, right? So sophomore year, we was 5-23, terrible. And at this time, I have this mentality. Obviously, I was leading scorer in the district, and I had this mentality.
Let me set it up first. So let's keep in mind that everyone, because
Coach O.
I can't hear you. Hold on.
Coach, Coach, are you there? Coach Ollendieck just got his internet fixed. So I don't know if there's a internet thing because Coach O's just making a funny face right now.
Yeah, that's how I see it. I was like, it's stuck.
Someone accidentally cut his internet wire, so they came in and fixed it this morning.
Oh, they did this morning?
Yeah. Let me text him. But he was pretty excited about the story, it looks like.
Yeah, no, he definitely was about to. He wanted to put some background information in there before I started talking.
How you holding up, Jordan?
Good. I'm good. Just trying to get workouts in, working out in my garage and stuff. Just making sure I'm in shape. Obviously, you never know when this coronavirus thing is going to end. So, I'm just trying to be ready for my moment, if I'm able to get one. So,
yeah,
that's really what I'm doing right now, just trying to maintain.
So hopefully they can start lifting some of these bans on some gyms and workout facilities so you can get in the gym and get your work in.
Yeah, that's the goal. I hope within the next couple of weeks, obviously, what Texas is doing, probably within the next 2 weeks, they'll be able to let more than 10 people in the space at a time so we can actually get, some workouts in, get open gyms going. So hopefully, even if it's like a small open gym. So.
For sure. There he is.
Okay, am I back?
You're back.
We got you, Coach.
All right,
Okay.
Set this up for us.
I'm going to set the scene first. We've been getting pressed by everybody, and we're getting run out of the gym. We can't break the press, and the only time we break the press is if Jordan dribbles through it. But he can't dribble through it the whole game. Yeah. So by the third and fourth quarters, typically he's tired from doing it, and so we already know, like, hey, we're supposed to be passing through it anyway. So we're trying to get the team prepared because we know everybody's going to press us. So we're trying to get everybody prepared. Hey, we need to be able to beat the press, and y'all got to be able to do your jobs and get the ball off the floor. Yeah. So that's how I'm going to preface it, and then Jordan can tell the rest of the story.
Okay, so yeah, like what Coach said, obviously we get pressed and stuff. But you got to, in my mind at this age, I was 16 at the time. And at that age, at that time, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm way better than people are getting me credit for, and at that point you kind of have that mindset that where it's like, all right, I'm the best. Like, I'm not going to let nobody tell me, like, Coach, you need to talk to these other people. I'm going to do what I keep doing. And that's kind of the mindset that I took on at that age, was just having that ultra confidence in myself. The work that I put in over that summer and not realizing yet that, you still have to be a part of a team. And so was it 5 on like 8 people or something like that?
It was 8, yeah.
5 on 8 people. So 8 people on defense, most of them like obviously from the JV team. And so, we're taking the ball every time. He's like, all right, we're going to run through press. I get it, dribble through it, right? So dribble through the press, break it. All right, Coach is like, all right, again, pass the ball through the press. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, I get the ball again. Dribble it right through again. Last time, Coach is like, all right, like this, like, pass the ball through the press. Like, we need to work on this, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, do it again. And so at this point, Coach is like, all right, take the ball in the coach's office and take some air out. So we had like a little flat basketball kind of. Coach, we get the ball back in. He's like, all right, play with this. Let's see if you can dribble this. I dribbled through it again with the flat ball. And I was so like stuck on trying to prove him wrong. Like, I'm going to keep doing this. And I remember Coach O just getting mad. He's like, go to the office. Coach Alvarado, go talk to him. Like, I'm done with this. And he was, and I remember walking to the office, just like straight faced, so mad. Really mad at nothing, just being young and being dumb. Like, why not just pass the ball? But at the moment, I'm thinking like, he really tried to do that to me in front of everybody, like trying to embarrass me hard. Like, I'm walking to the locker room or to the coach's office, and we had to talk Coach Alvarado and everything, and that helped. And obviously, I was able to eventually learn a little bit to be able to pass through the press and things like that, and still in games at points that I still was dribbling through it. But definitely, I think that was probably the biggest moment. I think looking back now, where it was like, all right, that was where things started to shift, and I started to kind of get it a little bit more. And I think as time went on, I started to progress through maturity and things. And obviously little things kept happening here and there, but that was like one that was like, all right, you got to kind of get it right if you want to play for this team. Because I think there was a lot of moments even looking back on it now, that I know there's some coaches in the country that, coach at high school things that probably would have kicked a kid like me off the team. You know what I'm saying? So I think that I was blessed to have, a coach that had the type of, the type of patience, for kids. And that really, he had his heart and soul was in the game of basketball to help us. And he didn't want to leave anybody behind. So I think that was what, was able to help me mature. And that was a big moment in our relationship where things went super south, but, obviously it started to get way better after that. So we kind of needed that little dip in order to, propel ourselves forward.
Well, and just to clarify too, Jordan wasn't bad at all. It was just he's a good kid. It just was a deal where it was just being stubborn. But I think a lot of what we dealt with him is he knew from an early age he wanted to play in college. And I think a lot of our stuff was always, and that's some of the conversations him and I would have too, was, look, I can use you right now in high school and I can let you loose and you can go score, 25. I mean, honestly, his senior year, he could have had 40 some point games too, a lot. But he was more worried at that point of developing as a player and developing our team for us to be successful. And I think by the end, he understood what we were trying to do. And my thing, like I always told him, is college coaches are going to know you're good because of how you play, not because how many points you scored.
Yeah.
And I think he developed that through the maturity process and knew why we were getting on him. And I do think it's helped him. He just keeps developing, but he can play so well with people. And I think that's what's made a huge difference for him. Because you watch him even in college now, he'll score. There's games I've watched, and he'll have 24 points, but you don't even realize he scored 24 points because he's doing it within the flow of everything that's going on. And that's an impressive thing to see that some kids struggle with that.
Yes. And one of the most impressive things about that day was that ball was so flat. I don't know how he dribbled it. I have no idea how he was able to.
It didn't even have the valve stem in it. That was the ball without the valve stem.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was I literally just was trying to pound it so much. Like, I wanted to prove a point so bad that it was
I think he looked at Coach O like.
He did, and I remember I made sure I made a phone that night. I called Mr. Renda Burns, got a phone call from Coach O that night to let her know what her son did at practice. So
yeah.
I've never seen Coach Ollendieck so red. He was so red.
Oh yeah, that day Coach was super red. The whole body was red.
Oh man. So Coach, talk to us a little bit about how you were able to manage Jordan's. He worked hard. He lived in the gym. Every time you gave him a goal, he made sure he worked that. I remember watching him wake up early in the morning and run from his house so he can come and lift and get his shots up because he wanted to get a part-time job, and then he had his AAU schedule. How did you balance what you expected of him along with his AAU stuff? Sometimes coaches at the high school and the public schools, they tend to butt heads with some of those AAU programs. But what was some of the keys to y'all's being able to work it out?
The big thing that I was always worried about with Jordan is he was in the gym so much that I was always afraid of overwork because you can't have a kid go over to the AAU, and he had some, he had some trainers. He played on AAU teams, and I know that they would lift and they would play and they did a lot of stuff. And so what we always try to do is balance everything. And so again, it got down to a trust thing because here's the one thing that Jordan always got that he always understood is you can't take the best kid on your program and have him disappear all summer. You just can't do that. Good teams don't have their best player leave, at least not at programs like where we're at, where a lot of kids don't play AAU. You can't take your best kid and have him leave all summer and then talk about team and doing all these things. So Jordan was always real good about when we would talk to him about, look, you got your AAU, and AAU is important. If you ask me, it's an important cog in the wheel because you can't have one of each. I mean, AAU is huge for exposure. I mean, part of the reason Jordan's where he's at is because of AAU. I mean, there's no doubt because people were able to see him on a stage that, a team from out on the East Coast ain't going to fly all the way in to watch a high school game for Jordan in Texas. I mean, AAU plays a huge thing on kids being able to be seen by lots of places. So it makes sense. I get it. But then you also have to figure out the balance of how you going to balance this. So one of the things we always did that is we had to have a lot of communication and trust. So what I would do, is I would tell Jordan, like during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what's your schedule, whatever. And he would come with us the first part of the week. He'd be at open gym. He would come and lift with the guys. He would do all that stuff. And then he would let me know when his important tournaments were. What I mean by important is he understood the idea of, you get some of the really good AU coaches, and there's a lot of good ones. They understand the impact of what they're trying to do with kids. So they don't overwork them either. They play them in the big tournaments that they know they're going to get exposure, especially when you get to the level that Jordan was at. So they took him to the big tournament. So what he always did with me is he communicated and would say, Coach, I got a such and such tournament in, I don't remember. I think he went to Arkansas. He'd go all over the place. And he'd say, hey, I got this here. So what we would do is he would come with us. He would be at open gym. He would do all of his skill stuff. And then he would lift. He'd do all that with the guys. So he was with our guys. And then on Thursday, we would tell him, you don't lift. You got a big weekend. You need to play well, whatever. You don't lift. You go there. You do what you need to do. And one of the things we always stress, and I don't know, Jordan probably can attest to this, and I always tell kids is when you play AAU, you play the way those coaches tell you to play. And when you come play for us, you play the way that we tell you to play. And the one thing I always promise kids is there's never going to be anything that I teach you that doesn't translate to anybody's system. Because at the end of the day, basketball players are basketball players. Yeah. So if you're teaching skill sets and concepts and understanding of the game, it doesn't matter if you play my way or you play a guy that plays fast-paced or however they play, you're going to fit in and you'll find a niche with that group. And that's what we always stress. So we tried to balance it all. I didn't want him lifting with them and then coming over and lifting with me. But I'll be honest, to my knowledge and the experience I had with his AAU coaches and his trainers, they were good back. Like, when he was lifting with us, I don't think he was lifting there. He would go practice with them, but it was always balanced. And he was real good about it. And he had, I know his trainer, his shooting coach, Jesse, he was always good about it. Like they would do stuff in the morning so that Jordan would come, and could be with us. They were just great about it. And so my big thing with AAU in high school is they've got to be able to coexist. And the only way it coexists is if there's true communication and there's actual trust. And if both entities, the high school coach and the AAU coach, understand that you're there to benefit the kid, and it's got to be a balance. It can't be they go full 100% AAU in the summer and then they just come back during the school year with the team. There's got to be a blend, but you got to be able to trust. So he was always real good about it. I didn't have to worry with him. He communicated. His parents communicated. And I tried to communicate as best with them. And like I said, there's no doubt he would not be where he's at without the AAU connections and the guys that he knew that worked with him. Because high school down here, you have more access now, but I didn't even have enough access to it. He couldn't do the stuff he was doing with his trainers with me year round. Yeah. It's illegal. It's a violation. So he did a really good job of using his resources and finding good people that would communicate. And I think it benefited him and it worked out really well for him. But that's how we balanced it. It was all trust, communication, and understanding that, hey, I got to give a little bit here too. I can't expect him to be with me every day, and you can't do that. It wears a kid out. He can't do it. But at the same time, he was great. Like I said, he understood the team concept. And when I would tell him, hey, like it's important, the guy's got to see you, he was there. Yeah. He would come. And then there were some times that honestly, he'd drive me nuts because I'd tell him like, hey, you need to take Thursday off and go here. And then there he is. He's up there playing and going full bore. And I'm like, look, dude, you're going to be over here. And so he was almost a guy like you had to tell him, like, I need you to go home and take a day off. I need you to, because the thing with Jordan, he'd play when he was hurt. He'd play all the time. He'd be injured. He'd have his ankle or trying to play, never want to sit out. You couldn't even rest him. He wasn't like, some guys that look for an excuse to get out. He always went on there. So we had to kind of work with him on that and get him to understand that rest is an important part of it too. And he was always real good about it. So I didn't feel like it was ever really an issue for us.
And it can be for some people. Jordan,
yes.
Do you remember those days? Do you remember how hard was it as a young student athlete to balance it all?
Yeah, honestly, for me, I just feel like I had this type of work ethic kind of instilled in me just, just from watching my parents. Obviously, you know what I'm saying, hustle as we were growing up to make sure that they could get us everything we needed, made sure that I could, get to AAU tournaments and get to these places. And obviously, my brothers sacrificed a lot because, obviously they weren't able to have a lot because, we had to go to these AAU tournaments and things like that. So I feel like for me, it was just this super work ethic, this super hard, like, I guess, confidence that I had in myself that it wasn't really even that hard to do it. Like, I wanted to play basketball so much. There was days that I didn't want to sit out. There was days, like Coach said, I remember one day at the gym, I got hit in like the bottom of my elbow, but I played the next day. So in a tournament down, downtown at Mission Conception, played the tournament right there and was already back at it with not being able to really shoot, trying to go in, shoot my left hand. And it was just something to me that I just love to do so much. So when you love to do something, I think like that when it's fun for you, it's not really a struggle. I think maybe the struggle was trying to figure out when to do what and what days I was going to do, what, where. But I knew I wanted to do something. I knew that day was going to be, I was going to go play basketball. I was going to make sure I lifted. I was going to make sure I talked to guys. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't that as hard as it is now. I think obviously being at Colgate with having to balance the academic and the rigorous academic schedule and everything like that, along with trying to be, one of the best mid-major teams in the country. I think that was, that's a lot harder and stressful just because of the academic side. But in high school, I feel like I didn't do that well, I think, in the classroom as well as I could have in high school, but it wasn't hard. So that's why I think it wasn't hard to balance trying to play basketball and do all those things, and then being in school and making sure I was doing what I was supposed to do, because it was just something I loved to do and something that I was taught as growing up. If you want something, go get it. There's nobody can tell you no. Only you can make your dreams into reality. So I mean, being taught that at a young age, I think they instilled that in me, which is why I'm chasing my dreams as we speak.
Tell us about your senior year, Jordan. Now, both of you guys can chip in on this, but you guys make history at Marshall High School. Won a lot of games, made a nice playoff run. It had been about 20 years since something like that had happened at the school. Just talk a little bit about the highs and the lows, early season, late in the season, that giant crowd at UTSA, when it all ended, what that felt like, and just talk about that journey that last year a little bit.
Yeah, the journey, the last ride, man, it was amazing. It was amazing. I think that was the year when I think pretty much everybody got it. Pretty much everybody kind of, at this point, we trusted each other. We liked each other. And the truth is, I didn't really hang out with anybody on the basketball team outside of basketball. But basketball was just so big of a thing in my life that was, those were my guys, regardless, even to this day, if they call me or hit me up for something, I'm always going to answer the phone, always going to text back. So I think that because we, Coach had knitted us together into kind of like this little family where we all believed in each other and we all trusted in each other. It was easy. When we went out to play, guys really weren't arguing. Shot selection wasn't really, too bad because Coach had taught us what shots were good and what shots were bad, who could shoot what shot, who wasn't supposed to be shooting a shot, knowing the time and knowing the time and score in the game. So I think learning that as we went on, I think we just kept building confidence. And obviously the Seguin tournament was big. I think that made our season kind of start rolling because we beat, obviously we beat Steele, then we turned around and beat Judson. And those two big wins allowed us to, look at each other in the locker room and we're like, we're really good. We're a really good team when we want to come to play and we play really hard. The guys who have all this talent and all this athleticism, that doesn't put the ball in the basket. That doesn't guard guys on the other end. That all comes down to effort. And I think Coach was able to teach us effort. And once we got rolling, it seemed like it just couldn't stop. Like we just kept winning. Went down to what was I think we played our first game in the playoffs. We played against Corpus Christi Carroll, right? Was it Corpus Christi Carroll? And I forget, in Victoria?
Yep.
Yeah, in Victoria. So we go down there. And I remember we were in the back gym shooting around. You know, that game's kind of like a little nervous. This first playoff game, we ain't played in a while. And, you know, we go out there and we blow the team out. You know what I'm saying? And we just – Coach just had this confidence in us that it was like we just felt like we could beat anybody on any given night. Like any given night, if you gave us one shot, like we can make it happen. And so, you know, we were able to win that game, went to Wagner and played New Braunfels second round. And, you know, luckily we played Churchill early in the year, lost to Churchill. Now I remember we were waiting for that game, the New Braunfels versus Churchill game, and New Braunfels ended up winning. And, you know, we just had this confidence of like, man, we're going to go down to Wagner and we're going to play New Braunfels and we're going to beat them. And we did. And, you know, we were able to advance to the third round. Obviously, Clemens got us. You know, they had a pretty good team with some D1 guys on there. But, yeah, I mean, our crowd, the amount of support that we had throughout the season from our school and from just the people around, I think just the neighborhood that you know, appreciated what we were doing for our school. So when we got to UTSA, we were able to sell out our section and, you know, it looked great and everything like that. And it's just – it all started with, you know, 4 years ago when I walked into a gym and Coach O was in there and you guys were in there and we had those open gyms and all those things that led up to that point to be able to create an atmosphere of a winning culture for the last couple of years that we were there. And you guys went to the playoffs, I think, again after I left, right?
Yeah, we won 20 games the next year. And
yeah, so it was just amazing. It's the culture that Coach was able to build for us and able to have that playoff run and be this historic team and go down in Marshall history as, you know, a great basketball team. So I think, you know, it all started there. But, yeah, that's why, you know, I think we were able to grab that support and everything just because of everything that led up to it, all the hard work, all the adversity. And I think that's what Coach's main word was, adversity. I feel like I heard adversity 1,000 times, you know. So adversity was just what we continue to believe that we had to overcome something. And it kept the chip on our shoulder every game. And ultimately, like, I think all of us kind of put that chip in everything that we do now. I think everybody has that kind of that chip of they want to be the best at what they do and they want to work super hard for whoever they have to work for. So, you know, I think that comes back to Coach O, you know, being that guy that was, you know, no holds barred. He didn't tolerate anything. And, you know, he made us winners.
A lot of people, what they forget about that year, we started the year 1-3.
Yeah.
We actually lost to New Braunfels.
New Braunfels, yeah.
In overtime at their place. So it was kind of, you know, we got to play them later in the playoffs, and they had a good group that year, and Coach Bronner does a great job with them. So, you know, and we had some battles with them, but we were able to play really well in that playoff stretch. And then we had, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, we went 1-3, and then after that, we did real well. We had one bad setback. Brandeis, we lost a close game with Clark. That's when they had the 50-year anniversary celebration, and our guys got to meet all the Marshall players that played on the state championship team 50 years prior in 1965. That was pretty cool. It was a special year. I mean, it really was. It was a special year with a lot of great kids, and the community was awesome, and I think they were hungry for something to grab onto. And so, man, I remember when we went to Victoria, our principal, Miss Cleveland, said, hey, we're going to do a send-off. And, man, the send-off was – we walked out of the locker room and the whole school was out there. And so we had a big crowd in Victoria for traveling that far. And then we had a huge crowd in Wagner and then a massive crowd at UTSA. And I still think about that game because there's some things I wish I'd have done a little different. You know, it's one of those games you coach in and then you're like, you know, if I'd have done this, or this, it's one of those games you don't let go because we had a special group. Had we got by that game, who knows? I mean, who knows? We beat Steele that year and Steele went to the state tournament and lost to the state champion team in overtime by 1. I don't know if you remember that. I believe they lost to DeSoto by 1. Steele did, and we were able to beat Steele. Steele had a great team. And but I agree with Jordan. The Seguin tournament was the turning point for us, where I think they believe because people don't realize we also beat Madison in the opening round, and they were really good. And we were behind early, and they were pressing us and running us out of the gym, and we were able to get our composure and come all the way back and beat them. And then I believe it was Central Catholic, I believe we beat the second game, and they were ranked in the top 10 in the city at the time. And then we were able to beat Steele, who was, I think, number 2 at the time. And then we got to play Judson. And to me, the Judson game was huge because Judson, they're
Judson.
the city that Judson's Judson. They're always everybody. For a long time they were a measuring point. Every year you knew they were going to be good, and they were loaded with athletes. And we were able to go in there, and I mean that was an intense game for us. I don't know for Judson if it was, but for us it was like, I mean, it felt like you're coaching the state championship game, and we played our butts off, and we ended up beating them, and stuff. And then I think from that point on, it was almost like, hey, here we go. And then we won the New Braunfels tournament the next weekend, and we just started rolling from there. And like I said, we had the real bad setback we had was the Brandeis that year. I think we got a little too overhyped. Guys got overhyped. It was supposed to be the big battle, and we went in there and I'm not gonna lie, they clobbered us. I mean, I think that we ended up losing by 18 or 20 to them, but honestly, that loss might have helped us too, because I think it got us refocused.
Sure,
like on you don't ever want to lose, but it was kind of like, hey, we either show up and we play well every night, or people are going to beat us, and not only beat us, but beat us bad. And then we kind of rolled and stuff. But yeah, it was a great experience, great for the community. The kids were awesome, and it's a group. You'll never forget that group of kids or what they did and stuff. And the school was great too, though. The support from the school was amazing at the time too. So we did some cool stuff, man. I mean, it was a good group. And then, like he said, it carried over into the next year. They won 20 games. We got into the playoffs. We actually lost to Steele in the first round. We didn't start a kid over 6 foot tall. We played a different style, but those kids were tough because they were in that culture with Jordan and them, and so they just battled, And we had some young guys like Jordan's group. We had some young guys play. We had 2 sophomores playing with your group, Levi and Stanley. Too. I mean, we had and JJ Juarez played in that Clemens game too. We had some young guys playing, mixed in with our older guys. So it was a neat group, and they did carry that on for a few years. So it was good.
Nice.
Hey, I will tell you though, we went through. We did make it through 4 years with Jordan Burns, and he took 1 charge in 4 years, and it wasn't a charge.
It wasn't really a charge, but
heck no. He came up and said, "Coach, I took a charge." They're like, "That was not a charge."
And they called it. They called it.
Yeah.
They called it.
But that even went into the coaching aspect of adjustments. Man, I was old school, so you know how I was with our guards. Like, we were going to take charges, we're going to be tough, whatever. And I remember Coach Bertel having a talk with me one time saying, because I'm like, I can't get the kid to take a charge. And Jordan was so awkward about it anyway, he couldn't even really take it when we practiced him and practiced. I was afraid sometimes when he fell, he's going to hurt himself. So I remember Coach Bertel telling me, look, you gotta understand that he can do some special things that some kids can't. Sometimes you got to kind of let him go.
Yeah.
And decide, hey, he may not do this, but he's going to give you this. And so we kind of just left the charge thing alone after a while and things. But then he made that, I don't know if you remember that Stevens game. We beat Stevens the end of that year, his senior year, the last regulation game. I think it was triple overtime.
Yeah, triple overtime.
And he went down the floor and he made a play that no kid on our team could have made. He went up and he ended up blocking a shot that was would have ended the game for us. And he went down, chased the kid down, a good player, and the kid put it up, and Jordan went above the rim and blocked it. And it would have been a deal where I'd normally been yelling at a kid, take a charge, and Jordan just blocked the shot. So you kind of had to learn to live with it a little bit,
Well, talk a little bit about Coach, Jordan takes off to prep school, and he has some success, and he goes to Colgate. And in his second year there, they make the big dance, and he plays his butt off in the conference championship of the Patriot League. And he has a heck of a game against Tennessee, who was a heck of a defensive team that year in the NCAA, and just goes off and lights them up. And then not only that, he follows up the following year and has an amazing junior season campaign. Just as a former coach of his, how does that make you feel inside?
Well, it's been awesome to see. Just we've always known his goals, and the amazing thing with him is since he was the summer between his freshman and sophomore year, he started talking about. I remember having a conversation with his dad, with Eroy, and he said, "Coach, you think he could really go D1?" And I remember telling him, "I don't know, because he doesn't pass the eye test, so he's going to have all these attributes in there to make it." And but he was a kid that was just an insistent. He was going to make it, and so he did it, whatever it took. So for me, it's been honestly, it's been a deal that actually kind of motivates me. I mean, it's pretty neat to see somebody that you'd never suspect that they could do what they've done, and just watching him, it just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And so it's an inspirational thing to me to be able to see kids. And I can't tell you how many times I've told stories about him to kids about, look, you want to believe in it. Look what he did. I mean, they mark him at 6 foot. I don't know. I don't know if I give you 6 foot yet, but you're talking about a kid came out of Marshall High School. We weren't well known for basketball at that time. He was under recruited. Mainly to me because our program just wasn't that good, so we didn't have the reputation. By the time we became good, he was part of that process. So I thought he was underappreciated. You're talking about he didn't make the all-super team for the city that year as a senior, when to me he was one of the top 4 or 5 players in the city for sure. And for sure, and here's the deal. That year we had some great players in the city, but there was no doubt in my mind he was just good. And like I used to tell recruiters, I always believed because he started later and because of what he had to endure to go through our program where we weren't an established program. He had to be part of what established it. I always told people I thought he was going to be a better college player than high school player because he was still learning and he was still maturing and all that. And so for me, it's been amazing to watch him, to be able to see what he did at the prep school level, and then to go in as his freshman year. I'll be honest, and I think Jordan, I think I might even told you this, I thought he would play as a freshman. And I thought he'd be a contributor. I didn't know going in that he was going to make the impact he made immediately. But part of it, I hadn't seen him play live in about a year and a half, and it was amazing to see how far he had come and improved and how hard he had worked, and then to see the difference going into his sophomore. Because even at the end of his freshman year at Colgate, he still was struggling with some maturity things. Like I remember, but here's the thing. To me, Jordan's college career has paralleled his high school career in a lot of the same ways because we weren't very good. And then his junior year, we became pretty good. People forget about when he was a junior. We actually missed the playoffs by 1 game. So we almost made it. And he was so angry when we didn't make it. And then he worked and worked and worked, and then we just kept going. And then all of a sudden we had that amazing senior year. Well, to me, his college has paralleled it. He went to a program that was kind of trying to rebuild, trying to get something going. He goes in there, he contributes right away. But at the end of his freshman year there, they played Bucknell with a chance already to go to the NCAA tournament, and they got beat. And I know, Jordan, you could probably attest this. He didn't handle it very well because he wants to compete, and it was his dream to play in this NCAA tournament, and they're right there. And then it didn't work. And I think even then, you go through those things and you mature. And then to see from that point to him as a sophomore, where they got in the big moment and all of a sudden he wasn't fazed by it. And he just goes off, and it was kind of like, okay, we're not going to lose again. I'm going to make sure we don't lose again. And you remember, Coach Alvarado, we watched it actually with his dad, which you talk about emotional things. I had a big connection with my dad, obviously, with athletics and sports. And to be able to sit there and watch that game, and part of the time I'm watching his dad watch him on TV and how proud he was and all that. It was an amazing thing for me to experience just as a dad and with the relationship I had with my father, to be able to see all that. And then you go into, like you said, the NCAA tournament, which you remember me and you, we were like, we're going. I'd always told Jordan in high school, you play in the NCAA tournament, dude, I'm going. And so you remember, like, they got in, they got the seed, and it's like, oh, it's Columbus, Ohio. And so you and I were like, we're going on a one-way flight to Cincinnati, renting a car, driving up there, seeing the game, driving all the way back to San Antonio. But I'm so glad we went because it was amazing, to watch him. And you're so proud to see him rise to the occasion, rise to the moment. But also, one of the things I enjoyed watching, where I say it paralleled his high school career, is at the end of the Bucknell game, when they made the NCAA tournament his sophomore year, when that game was done, knowing Jordan's personality and the trust, and he's got to know that you believe in him. And that's one thing I always tell people. Jordan he has to know you believe in him. Jordan doesn't think you believe in him. He don't put a lot of faith in you or trust in you. But at the end of that Bucknell game, And I know at times he hit heads a little bit with Coach Lango, just like he did with me. But at the end of the Bucknell game, it was awesome for me to watch him. It was like looking in a mirror. He, after they beat Bucknell, him going over and hugging Coach Lango, and it was like, okay, we went through all this, and now we're here together, kind of thing. It was pretty cool to see because it just parallels it so much. And it was awesome, But I will tell you, the thing I'm most proud of with him is and I don't know if I've even told you, Jordan, the thing I'm most proud of is how he's handled everything. He got thrown into a huge moment. He rose to the occasion. All of a sudden, everybody in the country knows who he is. But the big thing is how he's handled it. Because, I remember even when we were driving back at the Tennessee game, you were like, oh, my God, Jordan is trending, like as one of the top deals on Twitter and everything. But in his interviews and the way he carries himself, and Jordan, I'm proud of you for that, man. You carry yourself very well. And I have people tell me all the time that don't even know you, that hear you speak or hear you talk at things, and they're like, man, that kid, he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he gets it. He understands the big picture of everything, and I think that's a hard thing with kids. But that goes back to that isn't even us. That's his upbringing, his parents, and the way that he is, and he's loyal to people and that he trusts, and I think that's a big part of it. But I've been very proud to see how well he's handled it, how he's the same kid he was. That, Coach. He comes back, and if you ask him to come talk to your kids, he's going to come talk to the kids. He was, when I was still at Marshall, if he came back and I asked him, there's a kid at Marshall right now, he was a good middle school player, and I'd say, hey, Jordan, this kid's going to be pretty good. Can you talk to him for me? And Jordan bring him right up to the gym, and he'd work out with him, and he would do all those different things, and he gives back, and he stays very humble to where he's from, and that's what I'm the most proud of him for, and it's going to carry a long ways, and with his connections and where he goes later on and how he treats people.
I'm appreciative of it as well. I remember a time even with Sotelo, I said, Josh, you got to get your work done, your schoolwork done. I said, you know what? I called Jordan real quick in the office, said, put him on speakerphone. Jordan, tell this young man that doesn't matter how many points he scores, he's still got to get his work done. And here's Jordan. Man, I just got back from scoring 35 points against Tennessee, and I had an essay due. My teachers act like they don't even know. My professors don't care that I just dropped 35 against the best defensive team in the country. They want their essay, 20 pages and all. And Sotelo was like, what? And so Jordan's always been really good about coming back and helping us out, as well. So I appreciate it. Talk to me a little bit, Jordan, about just your next move. I know you just declared for the draft. What are the emotions behind that? And considering everything going on with this whole COVID situation.
Yeah. I was gonna say one thing before I go there. It's just with what Coach O said in interviews and things. It's funny because I feel like this far down the line, I thought I wouldn't still be thinking of stuff like this, but still before every interview, I remember Coach O used to be like, all right, remember it's always we and not me. And even whenever I go into interviews now, I always think all right, it's we, not me, in everything that I do, you realize that you have to give the credit where credit's due, and also appreciate people who, are there for you and are able to put you in the moments to be successful. So I think that, that was big with you when I was coming up, is just realizing how to talk in interviews and realizing that you should always give your team the respect that they deserve, because, it's not a one-man show ever. So obviously, Coach, I appreciate that. But going to what's on the table right now with declaring everything, I think right now, because there's no workouts and things, it still is kind of it doesn't seem, too big. But I think for me, this is a dream, obviously, you guys know I've had for a while, to be an NBA player, to make it into the NBA and just be a pro. So I think now that I'm so close to this and looking back on all the hard work that I've done and all the hard work I continue to do, it is kind of surreal thinking about it. I remember moments when I'd run to school, and I'd get there and in my mind, every time I ran was I wonder how long I can keep this up. I wonder if this is going to be, can I create some type of mode to where this is, if I want to go work out or I want to make sure I'm getting something done, can I instill this within myself to continue to do this. And that's why, I continue to run the school, continue to work out in the morning, continue to get on the track and run. And all of those things, they create this work ethic in yourself to where even now when I don't feel like working out, it's not hard to do it because it's just who I am and it's how I'm wired and it's how I began to wire myself when I got into high school. So I think at this moment now, looking back on all of it, it's like I feel so blessed that I'm even at this moment and I'm able to see this through. Whether that's this year or going back to school for a year, either way, it's within the next couple years, and I just I feel blessed I'm able to be in this moment and just trying to soak it all in, trying to make sure I'm around my family as much as possible. Make sure I keep the people close that are in my circle that I really look to for guidance and advice and mentorship and all those things. So I really appreciate the people who I've come up with and come to know, with obviously you two and my guys in AAU and my trainer and the guys at Colgate and everything that have put so much into me to be able to get here. So yeah, it's just the moment that we're in is just amazing, just to even be able to declare for the draft and it be something that a lot of people around the nation will respect as like, wow, he's entering the draft and it can make sense. It's really amazing. Like, it's hard to put into words how I feel about it. Just because there's so much that was put in that it's hard to even like put it out in words of how excited I am to be at this moment and continue to work towards trying to become an NBA player. So yeah, it's just amazing. I'm just so blessed to even be in this moment and to have you guys within my life. It's really truly a blessing.
Well, I'm proud of you, and I know Coach O is super proud of you as well. And I know Mama and Daddy and your whole family's proud of you. You got one heck of a support system at home, and I think that goes a long way.
Definitely.
Your brother should definitely win like some type of Hype Man of the Year award. That dude is great at what he does.
Definitely. He's gonna get a big, whenever I get whatever money I get, my brother gonna be right there by my side. So both of them. So yeah, but yeah, Jalen can definitely promote. He can definitely promote. So he gonna be on there 5 times a day, posting, retweeting, commenting, everything. The thing is, like, people at school sometimes will be like, oh, did you ask? Like, my brother, like, me and my brother don't talk about those things, you know what I'm saying? Like, anything he's ever posted about me, anything, like, we've never had a conversation about those things, obviously, because that's just my brother, and that's just something he does because he loves me, and that's something that I'm so appreciative for, to have a brother like that can have the platform he has and also still support, me tremendously. So yeah, I'm so blessed to have someone like that on my side, to be a part of my team. So I'm thankful for him.
Coach, before we finish off, just a couple of your favorite memories that you share with Jordan that come to mind.
Well, I mean, we've just had so many. I don't know if I can pick out a couple. I mean, I've got great memories, that have to do with him. Like I told him after their Patriot League thing, my dad, he had lung cancer. And Jordan, it was a huge thing for me. I went back, over spring break, and I got to watch 2 of Jordan's games with my mom and dad. And that was an awesome thing because my dad, I think he follows Jordan like he's his kid. He'll call and say, yeah, Jordan had this, and he did this, and he did this. And so they follow him, and they feel connected to him. And because of that, it keeps me connected with them and with my dad and my mom in a way too. And so you just look at all the different things he's accomplished and done. I mean, it's a pretty neat thing. And like I said, he's always stayed humble. The run we had at Marshall, we didn't maybe make it to the state tournament like we had hoped, but at the same time, that'll never be done again. That'll never have the environment around it the way it was. Just a special time with a special group of kids, and he was one of them, and obviously was a leader and a huge part of that. We don't do the things that we did there without him. I mean, there's no doubt. he was the foundation of it. Him along with a couple other kids with the foundation, and so, like I said, even the tough moments we had, to me, are great memories. Like, I look back at them now and I laugh, and about it. And it's, at the time, man, I wasn't laughing, but now we look back and it was, we had to have those moments to have these other moments, and so it was really neat. And I can tell you, even things like Jordan's got me to travel. How I am with I don't travel a lot. I don't do a lot of that stuff. And man, I'm travel. I've been to Boston 3 times. I went to Washington D.C. this year, and and all over, because I just I follow him and go try to watch him play when I can, and try to plan a trip. And if he goes back next year, if he is at Colgate next year, we already got another trip. I already got another one planned, and this time Jackson, my son's going because he wants to go watch Jordan play. And so I just had to have that talk with him the other day, like, hey, Jordan may not be back at Colgate, so we'll see. We'll figure something out. But just a lot of memories, and I'm just proud of him and see where he's at. And he's living out everybody's dream. I mean, I can't sit there and tell you I didn't have that dream. I grew up thinking, hey, I want to play in the NBA. I want to do all this stuff too. But I can tell you I never put in the time or I never had the work ethic to the extent that he has had to be there. And I was never the player that he was. And so it's been amazing just to watch him and be able to be a part of that journey and see his development and see how good he is. And so I don't know if I can name one, or two. It's just as a whole, we've got so many different memories. So I will tell you, the one thing I always struggled with him was, when he comes back, we always try to go eat with him. But the only dang place this kid ever wants to eat is Chili's.
Best place on earth, Coach.
And so, you try, that's all he wants. Where you want to eat, we'll go wherever. Chili's. We're going to Chili's. We're going to Chili's. So that guy, man, someday Chili's better, if he makes it in the NBA, Chili's should be backing him. There's your sponsorship right there. He's going to be doing Chili's commercials.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jordan, any advice you'd give any young student athletes, coming up, maybe facing some difficulties, or maybe don't quite understand if they have someone who's holding them to high standards and how to work through those type of situations? Any advice you'd want to give any young student athletes?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, I was blessed with this support group, with obviously both my parents and my brothers here just continuing to push me. But I think the one thing that I had to find out, that I had to get on my own and nobody could help me with, was the work ethic side of things, and just trying to instill the work ethic and obviously maturity. You have to at some point want to grow up before you can actually mature. So I think just realizing that the people who are there, that especially coaches, people who you're playing for, realizing that they want the best for you. They're not going to tell you things to ruin your life. That's not, what they're there for. And I think early on I had that kind of like, he just doesn't like me, or, well, if he didn't like you, you wouldn't be on his team. He wouldn't want to put any time or effort into you as a person, you as an individual, you as a basketball player. So I think anywhere that people are putting time towards you shows how much that they care for you. And I think knowing that, I think that's the biggest turning point, I think, in a lot of people's careers is learning how to build trust in others. I think building the trust that you have in your coaches and your teammates around you create success. And then obviously the work ethic part on your own is just figuring out if basketball is something you want to do, or whatever it is in life that you really want to do. You have to realize that it comes with a lot of hard work. You'll never get anything easy. Anything easy isn't worth having. So I think realizing that as a kid that was 16, 17 years old, I was able to push forward and get to where I'm at. But at any moment, one bad decision could change, your whole life. So I think obviously figuring out who your real friends are, figuring out who you should be hanging around with, figuring out that some of your bestest friends shouldn't be people that you're hanging around with all the time. I think, you guys really taught me that, you can be friends with somebody from afar. You can love people from afar, but if they're not doing what, you're trying to do, then, you can't hang around with them. You can't just sit there and do everything that they're doing. And when people are going to parties and having fun and doing all these things that look, in the moment, they feel like this is something you have to do, something you have to do with your friends, some fun activity that you think you're missing, when really it's just a moment in time. It's just one day that you can go without going to a party, or you can go without hanging out with somebody that's, doing something that you shouldn't be doing. So I think, obviously that's big too, is just your friend group, realizing who's for you and who's not, realizing who you can trust and who you can't. I think that's the biggest thing in starting to mature and becoming a man.
Coach Ollendieck, what about you? To any young coaches or just coaches in general out there that maybe, might be butting heads with a young, talented player?
Well, I think for me, the big thing I tell people is you got to understand that you got to have patience, and you've got to understand that they're kids just like we were, and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to struggle, and just like anything, you can't give up on a kid because he makes a poor decision. And honestly, the biggest thing I learned is you can't always take it personal, because sometimes when they're doing this stuff, I mean, I know it's cliche, but they could be going through a lot of things, and they might just be having a bad day and haven't quite figured out who they are yet, and so they don't know how they're going to handle it. I deal with it with my daughter at home right now, who's 16. And there's just days. They're trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to develop, and they're trying to balance it all. And it's a lot, especially kids that are really good at if you're a really good basketball player, there's a lot of pressures because it's time consuming. You still got to do good in school. You still want to have your social outlets. Guys want to have girlfriends. I mean, you got so much stuff going on, and then you still got to put time to your family and all these. And you just they haven't figured out all their priorities yet, and they haven't figured out how to put it in a place. And I struggled with that a lot when I was, coaching really all the way through. And like I said, Jordan helped me develop a lot of that. They're not always taking it personal. And then also understanding that if you can't build trust with your players, and you just did this the other day in a coaching thing with Coach Bella and Coach Brewer, I was paying attention. I love what they said is if your kids don't trust you, and you can't get to a place in that relationship, you're going to struggle, and you're going to have a hard time. So you've got to be able to build that trust and give them opportunities. And when they make mistakes, be able to pull them aside, talk to them, and try to keep developing them, and just wish for the best and hope for it. That eventually they'll make some good decisions and do well. And so that would be my advice to them, is just the patience piece and to not take things personally. And just keep working with kids, give them opportunities. I mean, do what teachers do. That's what teachers do, and that's what coaching is. It's really just teaching them, preparing them for a sport, but also preparing them for life. And so that's what we try to do. And then when you have a kid, like him that does really well, you can look back and be like, hey, I questioned what I was doing when I was doing it, but it worked, and look how well he's doing. Because there's a lot of times as a coach that you start to question too. Hey, am I doing the right thing? Maybe I'm being too hard, and maybe I'm doing this, that, but you still got to coach and be who you are, and try to teach through those moments. And I think that's what's important. That's what I would tell a young coach today. And then hope when you become a head coach that you have the opportunity. You only get kids like Jordan. You're lucky if you get one or two of them in your coaching career. In all honesty, I mean, you don't get kids like that every day that can do the things that he's done and be determined to do it. And you got to be thankful when you get them, but it's a process. But you look back, you only you're going to be lucky if you get one or two kids that can do the things and be as dedicated and work as hard as what he did. So
thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you guys very much. Nothing but respect and love for you guys. If you guys ever need anything, obviously you know where to find me. But I appreciate y'all taking the time out to talk, and I think this could be very helpful for young athletes and young coaches alike. And that's all I got.
I appreciate it, man. I love the show you're doing. It's pretty cool. I mean, I'm out of coaching, but I'm still watching. I like hearing the stories from all the coaches, and and this was awesome getting to talk to Jordan on here with you and going back to relive the days, because, man, that was 9 years ago already, probably, right?
You're getting old, Jordan.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about. Yep.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate Jordan coming on and sharing some stories and that as well. So I enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys. Jordan, tell your parents I said hi.
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Coach.
All right.
Later,
Good
guys.
talking to you. See you guys.
Bye. You realize that they've been yanking our chains this whole time, robbing us blind, these cable companies. I mean, God dang. So we're watching all the same channels that we watched already on YouTube TV, but for $50.
Yeah, well, and then what I do is I have antennas on my other TVs. I get all my local stuff. I can watch whatever I want when I want to, like on the local stations.
Coach, can I pause you really fast?
Yeah.
Hold on. She wants to say hi.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm so mad I wanted to be there, but I had to work.
I would have preferred to get interviewed by you.
Coach.
I'm so much cooler than him.
Hey, Miss Burns.
Hey, Miss Burns.
So, Coach, Vanessa wanted me to ask, okay, who was your top assistant that you ever had in your program?
Not even close. It's hands down Vanessa Alvarado.
Vanessa Alvarado.
Right? I knew it.
Yep.
He didn't want to ask that question because he didn't want to hear the answer.
She's the #1 assistant in San Antonio, Texas. I can tell you that right now.
Yep, I know.
Yep.
I know. I am 2-0 in Summer League.
She coached in Summer League last year. She won 2 games.
I have a better
Hey, you might want to put in the Clemens job just opened. You should apply for that.
Cool.
Okay, well, I have to go back to work.
All right.
Say
It's
bye
good
now.
talking to you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
You have to answer that call, man.
Yeah.
I get you in a lot of trouble. You don't answer that.
She wants to say hi.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm so mad I wanted to be there, but I had to work.
I would have preferred to get interviewed by you.
Coach.
I'm so much cooler than him.
Hey, Miss Burns.
Hey, Miss Burns.
So, Coach, Vanessa wanted me to ask, okay, who was your top assistant that you ever had in your program?
Not even close. It's hands down Vanessa Alvarado.
Vanessa Alvarado.
Right? I knew it.
Yep.